Ah, I lost my paper towel I was using. Okay, so let's say this time you've got 5 times the square root of 16x cubed plus 3 times the square root of 64x cubed. Okay. 5 times the square root of 16x cubed plus 3 times the square root of 64x cubed. So, pause the video, see if you can do the entire simplification without watching me do it. Alright, let's see if we can figure it out. 5 times the square root of 16x cubed. First thing we need to do is break that down into factors. So, 5 times the square root of 16 is, we got 16 times x times x times x. And I kept that 16 there because I want you to realize immediately 16 is a perfect square, right? So we don't need to break it down into any factors because it's already a perfect square. So we know that. So first let's now rewrite this as 5 times the square root of 16 times the square root of x times x times x. Okay, so what's the square root of 16? Oh, move the mic a little bit. What's the square root of 16? 4, because 4 times 4 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. With the x times x times x, or x cubed, when you take a square root, you are essentially pulling out the two values you multiply by itself, right? So well, I'm explaining it this way because if you don't quite conceptualize square roots that way, you might not get what I'm about to do, which is if you take the square root of x times x times x, or x cubed, what you're doing is you're taking 2 of the x's, or the x squared right there that's inside the x cubed, and you are taking that out and leaving an x. And I'll show you why this works. Look here. Let's say x cubed. We can all agree that x cubed is equal to x times x times x, right? Well, x times x right there, that's x squared. We know that. X times x is x squared. So, x cubed is equal to x squared times x. So we should probably agree that the square root of x cubed is equal to the square root of x squared times x, which is equal to the square root of x squared times the square root of x. One of these is a perfect square. X squared is a perfect square. You can take the square root of x squared. That's x. So when you take the square root of x cubed, you get x times the square root of x. That is why that right there works. We just took the square root of x cubed, and we got x times the square root of x. So we pull the x out of the problem, or out of the radical sign, and this is going to give us 5 times x. Ooh, sorry. We also took the square root of 16 earlier. Remember that? Right there? Square root of 16 is 4. We pulled the 4 out, so we have 5 times 4 times x times the square root of x, because that's what's left over under the radical sign. So 5 times 4 is 20. 20 times x is 20x times the square root of x. This is the simplified version of 5 times the square root of 16x cubed. So next, what we need to do is simplify this one. 3 times the square root of 64x cubed. Okay. So, what we're going to do is this. Step 1. There's a perfect square there already, right? 64 is a perfect square. 64 is a perfect square. If you're not aware of that, it definitely is. So let's rewrite this as 3 times the square root of 64 times the square root of x cubed. 3 times the square root of 64 times the square root of x cubed. All right. Next, what we need to do is take these square roots. So the square root of 64 is 8. So 8 gets pulled out. The square root of x cubed. We just did that on this side over here. Look, remember, that is equal to the square root of x squared times the square root of x. Square root of x squared is x. So x gets pulled out. And the square root of x is left right there. So we get 3 times 8 times x times the square root of x. 3 times 8 times x times the square root of x. That would be 3 times 8 is 24, times x is 24x. So we get 24x times the square root of x. This is the simplified version of 3 times the square root of 64x cubed. Okay, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Look here. We've now got our simplified versions. 20 times x times the square root of x and 24x times the square root of x. And we're supposed to be adding them together. So let's see if there's anything else we can do in this problem. Let's write it out. 20x times the square root of x plus 24x times the square root of x. Right here. The question for you is, are we done? Think about it. Think about it. All right. No, we're not done. And we're not done because what do we got there? Square root of x. What do we got there? Square root of x. So what this means is these are like terms. They both have the same radical. They're like terms. So we can actually combine them. We can add them up. So 20x times the square root of x plus 24x times the square root of x. All that means is add, like we would do in a regular equation. If you saw 20x plus 24x right here, if you saw that a few months ago in class with me, most of you, all of you would immediately know that you just do 20 plus 24, which is 44, and you keep the x constant. You'd all know that. So it's the same thing right here. 20x plus 24x is 44x. The square root of x and the square root of x are like terms. They just stay constant. So 44x times the square root of x. And ladies and gentlemen, that is your final simplified version answer to this problem that we started way up there. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Stay inside and stay safe. Hope everyone is doing all right.